Hi, I'm Mike Sargent, and this is Arise on Screen.
You ain't never been down, how you gonna get on up?
He had a sound and moves like no one else, and his music influenced a nation. He was James Brown, the godfather of soul. Chadwick Boseman, Viola Davis, and Octavia Spencer star in Get On Up.
There's one other name you might know me by. Star-Lord.
Who?
Individually, these intergalactic misfits are the most unlikely set of heroes you'll ever meet. But together, with the help of their leader, they are the galaxy's only hope. Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, and Vin Diesel star in Guardians of the Galaxy.
As far as Africa is concerned, music cannot be for enjoyment. Music has to be for revolution. Music is the weapon.
Afrobeat music pioneer Fela Kuti used his music as a weapon and became a voice for the voiceless in Nigeria. In the new documentary, Finding Fela, we hear from those who knew him best to discover the man behind the music.
My father was inspired by Miles Davis. For Miles Davis to come later, to be inspired by my father.
All this and more on Arise on Screen. Hello, I'm Mike Sargent, and welcome to Arise on Screen, your global home for films both on screen and behind the scenes. And let's get to it. First, with this week's box office winners. Lucy tops the box office this week, followed by Hercules, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Planes, Fire and Rescue, and The Purge Anarchy rounds it out in the number 5 spot. And in movie news, this year's Comic-Con in San Diego was the place to be to see the first-look trailer for the revved-up reboot of Mad Max: Fury Road. Forget about Mel Gibson. The franchise film now stars Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron. According to Deadline.com, the debut trailer was a social media winner with over 6 million views since being posted on July 30th.
The favela isn't exactly a tourist destination.
Well, I'm not your regular tourist.
In the newest action film franchise, Falcon Rising, Michael Jai White stars with Layla Ali. Yes, the daughter of legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. White, as former Marine John Falcon Chapman, finds the bad guys and fights his way through exotic locations, all in the name of justice.
You want money? What kind of terrorist are you?
Moviegoers said goodbye to Japanese-American actor James Shigeta this week. Shigeta was born in Honolulu and rose to fame in the 1960s. His movie career spanned 50 years. Fans may remember him as Joe Takiji, president of Nakatomi Trading Corp., who took a bullet from the bad guy in the very first Die Hard movie. James Shigeta was 81.
I don't do romance. My tastes are very singular. You wouldn't understand.
The trailer is finally out. Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey's kinky love in the steamy movie adaptation of the bestseller 50 Shades of Grey will battle God-based romance when it comes out next year. The company behind God's Not Dead hopes to court movie couples with a faith-based love story titled Old Fashioned. Which movie will feel the love at the box office on Valentine's Day weekend 2015? Today, I'm joined by film critics Raqiyah Mays of theshadowleague.com and Julian Roman of movieweb.com. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
And when we come back, we will talk movies here on Arise on Screen. Coming up. He was the hardest working man in showbiz. He was the godfather of soul. Chadwick Boseman stars as James Brown in Get On Up, next here on Arise on Screen.
One of my favorite moments on the show was interviewing the author Taya Selassie. She wrote the New York Times bestseller Ghana Must Go, and she actually coined the phrase Afropolitan. And I feel like in part what this show speaks to is the Afropolitan audience. They're African, they're traveled, they're cosmopolitan, they're interested in the diaspora. That's what we deliver here, and Taya in many ways was the perfect embodiment of what I want our viewer to represent.
The new film Get On Up, starring Chadwick Boseman as James Brown, traces his life from boyhood to the late 80s and gives us a snapshot of the man behind the music. At the world premiere in Harlem's Apollo Theater in New York, Boseman spoke about Brown's significant contribution to our musical landscape.
His influence, over, music as well as the business of the music industry. The industry is still going on. I mean, I don't know if we would have had Michael Jackson the way we have Michael Jackson. He was, James Brown was one of his major influences.
Welcome back to Arise on Screen. So I'm going to go to you first, Julian. I really like this movie, actually, and I'm definitely a James Brown fan, and as Raqiyah said, who isn't? But I think you thought this film was decent, but not as good as some great films like Ray.
It's not the same caliber as Ray. I mean, basically, Chadwick Boseman's performance as James Brown and Nelson Ellis as Bobby Bird, they elevate the film. I mean, the film doesn't have a linear narrative. It kind of skips back around. It starts in the older life and the younger life, but you don't really get the full-on James Brown life story. It's kind of like James Brown light. It's very entertaining. It's very, very well done performance-wise, but it's not in the same category as Ray.
I agree with you. I felt it was sort of a James Brown, the hits, like we pop in at different points in his life, and it comes together as somewhat cohesive, but it really doesn't give you enough, to me, to really understand why some of the things that he did and who he really was. I get a glimpse, but really it wasn't enough satisfying. Now you, on the other hand, you really liked it. You found the performances amazing, but you didn't like the breaking the third wall when he talks to the camera.
Okay, I'll start with the positive. I enjoyed Get On Up. I enjoyed Chadwick Boseman's performance, the dancing, the singing, the lip syncing, where he actually sang some of those songs, but they did use James Brown's voice as well.
I think they had to use it.
Oh, of course, you can't
do a James Brown movie
without James Brown's music.
Okay.
Exactly. I didn't like the breaking of the fourth wall. I didn't need to see James Brown talk to me. I understand this is his story, but James Brown is gone, and I know that for sure. Just let me see a feature film and let me just watch it from my point of view. That was the only issue.
I agree with you because, I think what's interesting is that this film, similar to the Jersey Boys, it's not quite a musical, but we really get to see him do full songs like you would in a musical, but it jumps back to the drama, and in this case, it jumps back to the drama. But breaking the fourth wall, which is something that happens also in Jersey Boys, and I didn't think it was needed there either.
It's a gimmick, Mike. I mean, basically, when your script isn't that super strong, they want to do things to, I call it the music video culture, to try to bring the audience back in. But James Brown didn't need that. I mean, the man grew up in a brothel, was a godfather of soul and funk. You didn't have to make him spicier than he already was. If they told a straightforward story, I think it would be a much more interesting film. But not taking away from Boseman and Ellis's performances, I mean, they make this movie incredible. And I think you're going to see 2 Oscar nominations for those guys.
Do you?
I think so. I think Viola Davis did some pretty good work in here as well.
She was good.
She was very good. Well, we're going to move on.
I was going to say Tate Taylor did The Help, and so he brought in, Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis.
Who he'd worked with before.
Absolutely.
Well, our next film is Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's based on the Marvel comic. It stars Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, and Vin Diesel as the most unlikely set of heroes you'll ever meet, and, of course, the galaxy's only hope.
My name is Peter Quill. There's one other name you might know me by. Star-Lord. Who? Well, Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw. Guys, forget it.
At the premiere, star Chris Pratt talked about the film's global appeal.
not just an American movie, it's a movie that can be appreciated on a global scale because it doesn't even take place on Earth. There's an Earthling there who's representing our planet, but for the most part, it's all very alien. So I think that people will be able to really identify with that.
Well, I have to say, I was very surprised. I went in with very low expectations. I was not a fan of the comic book. I thought, it's a silly, I thought at the time it was Marvel's answer to all the furry talking animal comics that had come out. But like everybody else, I was blown away. I thought this movie was great. Now, Raqiyah, you really liked it, especially, you made an interesting point that the music kind of bridges, all the music from the 80s bridges the older and younger audience.
Yeah, they have Star-Lord, and his mother gives him music from the 70s and 80s.
On a Walkman.
On an old school Walkman.
Awesome mixtape.
I know. So you had all of these pop culture jokes from back in the day, the Footloose jokes and things like that really just made this movie funny. So it connected generations, the kids that love Marvel these days, but also the parents with the music and also those that grew up with comic books. This movie was funny. It showed you can be an idiot and take over the world, but all you need is a little bit of heart.
You can be an idiot and become president. We all know that. Okay.
True.
Now, you, Julian, you like this movie quite a bit too, and you made a really interesting observation that Chris Pratt is really kind of the new Han Solo.
Yeah, his character of Peter Quill is played with such a deft comic timing. I mean, it's hard to be a tough guy, kick ass, and be really funny at the same time. He's the modern day Han Solo, and I'm telling you, Chris Pratt is going to be a megastar after this movie because he's very, very good.
He is, and I have to say, the more I thought about it, he's got his own ship, and the ship is part of who he is, and it gets rebuilt, and there are a lot of things that parallel. I like the humor. I thought the humor actually worked quite a bit.
The humor is something that we just don't see anymore. I mean, Marvel has made a lot of great films, but they're all dark and bleak. I mean, even with the Nolan Batman films, there's no humor.
None.
I mean, what Guardians does is it goes back to the old school science fiction, like, Star Trek, where there's humor in it. There's action and there's all these other good stuff, but you can laugh. It's lighthearted. It's not taking itself too seriously.
Right.
Well, I think you're right, and I think the only other Marvel to have that amount of humor is the Avengers, and look how well that did.
True.
Yeah, but the Avengers wasn't funny. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is laugh you out of the chair funny, right?
Yes, it is.
It's really humorous.
Well, we're going to move on, and I think everybody should go see Guardians of the Galaxy. But we'll be back. Still to come.
As far as Africa is concerned, music cannot be for enjoyment. Music has to be for revolution.
Fela Kuti was the voice of the Nigerian people. Oscar-winning director Alex Gibney brings the life of the Afrobeat pioneer to the big screen. We'll speak to the director next, here on Arise on Screen.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.